Hey guys, today we'll be making a realistic looking gumball machine. I got this inspiration and design from a user on Reddit. His name is user/KPH529. So all credit goes to him for the design. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. But with that being said, let's get started. So first, what we're going to want to do is delete the default cube. Create a UV sphere. Then I'm gonna scale this up a bit, go into one view, bring it up, scale it up a little bit more, and I'm gonna go into wireframe, so go into face select and select not that much, about this much of the bottom half, and I'm gonna go ahead and delete that with the delete key and delete faces. Once that is done, you should have something like this. And once you do that, I select all faces with A, hit Alt, and then hit E, and extrude faces along normals. I'm going to be doing this outwards a little bit. You don't need to extrude too much. Then go ahead and go back to edge select, hit Shift Alt, and then click this edge, as well as Shift Alt, click this edge. Then you're going to want to bevel it with Control B and mouse wheel up to increase the amount of bevel, so you get a little bit more curvature. Now that we have the sphere, the glass sphere, we can shade smooth, and you're going to notice you have a little bit of lines and jagged edges around. To fix that, we can just go into here and add a subdivision surface modifier. We can leave it at 1. We can leave it at 1, and that should be fine. Now that we've subdivided the sphere, make sure you deselect these bottom faces. Then let's go ahead and make the top little cap that goes on top of the sphere. We're going to select these faces with Shift Alt click and box select these. Then because we can't use Shift Alt click to select these faces for some weird reason, I'm not sure why. But then we can go ahead and copy these with Shift D and move them up along the Y-axis. And then let's separate them from the sphere and make them a separate object with P and separate by selection. Once that's done, we can go ahead and go in edit mode, select all vertices and faces, and extrude them along normals once again to give it a little bit of thickness. And I'm going to go and shade smooth it and normals auto smooth, as well as this one. So we have to go to object, edit properties, normals, auto smooth to get that. We're going to also go ahead into object, set origin to geometry, so that the origin is right in the center of the cap and we don't get any problems when we are rotating or scaling. Let's go into one view and move this down. I'm going to scale this up a little bit so it looks a little bit better. And I'm actually going to Shift D, duplicate this entire thing, scale it down, and move it down. And then we have a little thing, a little sphere at the top. Scale that a little bit more and scale this down a little bit. So let's create a cylinder, scale it up a bit, move it up. Using face select, grab this face, the top face, and scale it down. Then let's scale down the whole thing along the Z-axis and move it up a little bit. I think this can be a little bit smaller, and scale it up against the Z-axis a little bit, scale it up, just make sure it's proportionate. I'll put the reference image right around here so you can see what it's supposed to look like. That's the proportions I'm aiming for, so you also should probably just try to go for that, those proportions. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, move it down a little bit. Actually, no. So I think these are some pretty good proportions for the gumball machine. I'm going to scale down this just a teensy bit, and I think that should be good. So I'm going to shade smooth this whole thing, auto smooth it, and let's start with this. So first, what we want to do is create a loop cut here to get that little chrome silver bit at the top. We're going to Shift Alt click this loop of faces and extrude along normals, just a tiny bit. We don't want to extrude it too much, and that should be good. Then we're going to go to edge select and shift alt these edge loops and bevel them a little bit to get a rounded edge. And if you look really closely, you can see there's a really small loop around right underneath this big chrome loop, which is going to be plastic, so we're going to make that as well. Just 2 loop cuts, just very thin. And then we can go ahead and click right here with shift alt and select that loop of faces and extrude those along normals very slightly, and that should be good. And then we can go ahead and select this loop of faces, and oh, oops, wrong loop of faces. The top 2. Make sure you select the top 2, not the one back here. So then we slightly bevel those ever so slightly, and boom, we got a nice curve. Now I think we can do is go ahead and I'm going to scale this bottom face a little bit down and move it up a little bit. Alright, next we're going to make another loop cut towards the bottom. I'd say about this much. Select this loop of faces and extrude along normals. Edge select, top, bottom, and bevel slightly. And we also have like a lot of small versions of these, so let's go ahead and make those as well. Right here, you want these to be about the same thickness. And so now we can go ahead and select these and extrude along normals ever so slightly and select these edges and bevel as such. I'm going to move this down to the top, or to the top of the sphere to make sure it's properly, it's just sitting on there like so. And let's move this down a little bit as well. Okay, now we can start making the cube slot where you put in the coin and the gumball comes out. So let's go into one view and create mesh cube, and let's scale this up on the z-axis, scale it down on the x-axis, move it around here, down, and I think we can scale it down a little bit more until we want it to end roughly around where the chrome begins and where the chrome starts. Like this upper chrome band and this lower chrome band, we want to stop here, like right around there. Let's go to 3 view and get this right. And I'm going to select this bottom face, go back into 3 view and drag it down until we get it right. So now what we can do is go ahead and add a Boolean modifier to the base of the gumball machine. Select this cube. So I'm going to scale this down a little bit more, actually. I think that should be good. Move it in a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and apply the Boolean modifier. Move this out of the way, and you can see that there is a nice cavity for our little coin slot and gumball output machine. I'm not sure what it's called, but we can move this in now. We don't want it to be sticking out too much, but we still want it to extrude outward a little bit. Now remember, we don't want this to stick out too much from the body of the gumball machine. We don't want it like all the way out here. We want it just slightly poking out a little bit. Alright, so next, once we've got our cube in place, we're going to select this front face and press I to inset. And once we've done that, we are going to go into edge select and move this one edge down quite a bit until it's almost like not even, it's almost at the bottom. And that's pretty much what we want. Once we've got this, we're going to go ahead and extrude just a tiny bit inwards. Now once we've got this, I'm going to go ahead and make a loop cut right there. And I'm going to inset this face slightly. once again, I will be moving this edge down a tiny bit, but not as much as last time. Then I'll grab this face, extrude along normals inward, pretty far in, maybe a little bit more. Moving along the y-axis, as far as we can pretty much go. That should be good. And this face up here, I am also going to inset it slightly and scale it on the x-axis a little bit, and extrude very slightly inwards as well. Now we're going to go ahead and bevel this very little, just not too much, until we get these nice edges that can catch the light. And I think I'm going to move this in on the y-axis a tiny bit more. Now that we've got this, let's go ahead and make the little tab that you turn to get your gumball. I haven't used one of these gumball machines before, actually. I've seen them everywhere, but I've never actually used one of these. But as you can see, I'm just scaling this cube down, and I'm going to go ahead and put a loop cut right in the center with Control R. Then I'm going to grab these two faces on the ends, scale them on the z-axis until we get this shape. Flatten it out a little bit more and bevel the whole thing slightly. Then we can move it in on the y-axis until it is just barely sitting on this face, and that should be good. Once we've done that, we have to go ahead and make I'm not really sure what it's called. It kind of looks like a tongue somewhat, but it's the thing that pops open. And we're gonna make another cube, bring it down, scale it up on the y-axis, scale it up on the x-axis, scale it down on the y-axis until we got this kind of thing. We want it to be roughly the same size as this hole right here. So we're gonna rotate it on the x-axis, maybe scale it down on the y-axis a little bit more until we get a thinner shape. Then we're gonna go and make two loop cuts, grab these two, bring them up on the I'm gonna double tap Y because it's y-axis in this, and when it's rotated like this, it'll bring it to the object's y-axis and not the world's y-axis if you double tap Y. Bring it up, grab these two at the back and bring those up accordingly as well until we have like this somewhat curve. Then let's go ahead and add a subdivision surface modifier. Bring it to like 3, subdivide the mesh, and we got this tongue looking thing. I'm gonna scale it up on the y-axis a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. And we got the base model down. This is pretty much how it should look. I think I'm gonna grab these faces on this little cap and bring them up a little bit. I think that looks a little bit better. And I'm gonna also select this edge with Shift-Alt, click, and bevel it a teeny bit, as well as this one. Yeah, that's good. That looks better. Alright, I think our model is completely done now, and we should start shading and texturing now. Alright, so we can start with the glass sphere at the top of the Gumball machine. So we're going to go ahead and delete this principled BSDF shader and create a glass BSDF shader. I'm going to connect this to surface, but we have to do a little bit more than this to get some accurate, a little bit more realistic glass. First, we're going to add a mix shader, and if you don't know how to get to this menu, you're going to click Shift A, same as you would add a mesh in modeling. So Shift A and then search for whatever node you want. Make sure Use Nodes is checked up here, otherwise it will be different. So once you got mix shader up in here, we can search for transparent BSDF and plug that up in here. Oops, my bad. Plug that up in there. And then we're going to add a math node and switch to maximum. Add a light path node and connect is shadow ray, as well as is reflection ray, and connect this end to the FAC over here. Now that we have our glass shader set up, I want to show you something about how we can't render this in Eevee. I'm going to create a plane, rotate it on the x-axis 90 degrees, move it up, move it behind this glass, scale it up a little bit. Now, if you already know what I'm about to talk about, you can just go ahead and skip this bit. But I'm going to create a light here so you can see this plane better in rendered mode. Now, if we go ahead and switch to rendered mode in Eevee, you can see that this glass is not like actual glass. You can't see through it. It's not transparent, even if we have a transparent node plugged in. This does not work in Eevee. You will have to render this. You'll have to render this in cycles if you want proper glass. So, just want to quickly say that. And once we switch to cycles, as you can see, if we create a light right here, you can see that light through the glass. Yeah, that's just a quick little tidbit. Now that we've made the glass, let's make the next material, which will be the red, like plasticky material that's on the Gumball machine. So first, let's change this to red, nice bright vibrant red, and let's bring the roughness down quite a bit. We want this to be pretty unrough. Then we can go ahead and pull the specular up quite a bit, and I'm going to add a clear coat and put the clear coat roughness down all the way. And I think that should be good, but there's one other thing I'll show you that will make this look quite a bit better. It's not necessary, but it definitely adds to the realism. So if you check in the rendered view, we got this nice glossy red. Now for the metal, you are going to need to download one off the internet, and I will link that one in the description, the one that I use. You can use whatever one you want, but this is the one that I found. There might be a better looking one, but this is what I'm going to use for the time being. Alright, so let's make a new material for the metal. New. Let's name it metal. And let's name this one red plastic, just so it's a little bit more neat. So let's open up our image textures. So you're going to want to have your file manager open with all your maps and images open. Let's just drag them on in here. I'm going to drag in the color first and connect that to base color. And keep this preview open so we can see roughly what it looks like. I'm not sure why this preview is not previewing properly. Alright, there. Now we can go ahead and bring in the metalness as well as the roughness. Now keep in mind, when you're doing these ones, you're going to want to switch this color space from sRGB to non-color to get the proper data value. So let's collapse that and bring this up here. And I'm going to bring in a color ramp node, so I can have a little bit more control on the intensity of the metallicness. So let's bring the roughness up here, and let's copy paste this color ramp. It is a little bit laggy, I apologize. I'm not sure why it is lagging so much. So once we've got those in, let's collapse these. So once we've got those in, I'm gonna go ahead and bring in the normals and switch this to non-color as well. And for this one, we're gonna need a normal map node. Plug that into the color and plug that one into normal. So I'm gonna explain what these nodes do real quick. Normal, it creates some shadows to give you the fake illusion of depth. Roughness gives you, instead of without the roughness image texture and color ramp, you can scale this roughness value around, and that will change the roughness of the entire texture. Versus this image, you get it dictates where the roughness will be high and where it will be low. And through the color ramp, we can control the intensity of that. So where it would be black, it'd be the roughness would be low. Where it's white, the roughness would be high. And this image is black and white in certain spots. We can control how rough the rough spots should be and how unrough the unrough part should be. And same goes for the metal, except instead of roughness, it controls the metalness. So now let's go ahead and apply this texture onto the vertices we want it to be applied to. Let's go ahead back into modeling. Let's go into one view, wireframe. Select these faces up at the top, as well as selecting these faces down at the bottom with box select. Then let's go into the materials properties panel and assign. Make sure you have the metal texture selected and then press assign on it. And once we go into material preview mode, you should see that the chrome texture has been assigned to there. Now we can also go ahead and apply this metal material to this as well. Let's go ahead and shade smooth that. And if you see some weird stretching of textures around here, let's go ahead into this and select it. Make sure you're in face select mode, select everything and go into UV unwrap faces. I don't really know what these do, if I'm being completely honest. I just kind of select a random one and hope it fixes the problem. If it doesn't, I just choose a different one. So for example, you got smart UV project, light map pack, cube projection, cylinder projection, sphere projection, project from view, and project from view from bounds. I don't know what the differences are. I'm not completely sure how it works, as I am still a little bit new to Blender as well. But if you I just know that if you have any weird stretched out textures, just try one of those and it will most likely fix the problem. It will just move the UVs around, but I don't know how it decides where to move them. Anyways, back up here, let's make these metal as well. And I'm gonna move this up a little bit. We got more of that weird stretch texture problem. Let's select all of the faces, and I'm gonna hit smart UV project for this one, and this one's fine. Oops. And this one's fine. And I'm gonna save my project real quick. So now that we have all of our materials, I'm going to show you what I was talking about earlier with this plastic that can help make it look better. So now that we are in our metal texture right now, I'm going to copy the roughness, walk on over here to the red texture, and paste the roughness with Control Z or Control C to copy and Control V to paste. And I'm going to plug that in, and we can see it gives us, oops, can't see anything. Let's make a plane real quick. Move down over here, scale this up, and let's increase the power of this thing. And we can see that it gives us, can't see it at all. Wow. Alright, let's go ahead and move the roughness up a little bit. There, now we can see it. It gives us some scratches. It gives us some scratches that you know, it's just natural. Things get dirty, things get scratched. It helps bring some realism to the object. I'm not going to be adding some scratches to the glass because I don't know, I just don't feel like it. And if I add a roughness, I don't think I can add a roughness map to this. Can I? Yes, I can add a roughness map. I just don't feel like it. I don't want a scratched up glass. I just want scratched up plastic and scratched up metal for this. Technically, that's not very realistic, but you know what? It's creative. It's a creative decision. But anyways, back to the topic at hand. I think we've pretty much finished shading this entire thing. Let's just finish up the scene. I'm going to bring this plane up until it's pretty much at the bottom. Scale it down a little bit and move it around. And I'm going to grab these two edges, extrude them on the Z-axis, and give this thing a nice texture, a nice color. That's a good color. I think light green would look good. Let's see. I'm gonna rendered view in cycles. That looks okay. And let's delete this sun lamp. It's giving a couple problems. It's giving us, we don't want shadows. We don't want any shadows coming from this plane. And I think I'm just gonna change this color to light blue. it matches the source image and it just looks better. So I've deleted the sun lamp. I've created this plane for our gumball machine to sit in, and I'm going to create some area lights. Move them back and scale them up a bit, rotate them on the y-axis, move them around until we have them positioned properly, and I'm going to point them right at the glass. Move another one right here and point it right at the glass with Shift T. If you Shift T to control where the light rays are pointing. Once we go into rendered view, we can see that it's very dark because what we have not done yet is increase the power. So go ahead and increase the power on these lamps. So now our gumball machine is lit properly, and although the surroundings are pretty dark, we can fix that with a sun lamp that is not pointing at our gumball machine. Instead, let's have it point directly at that corner. And let's hit rendered view. And maybe pull the power up a teensy bit. And I think we got a better looking scene. Now this is almost done, but there's one thing that's missing. A gumball machine needs gumballs. Now, it is kind of hard to get these to look right for the first time, so what I'm going to do is to hide this with H. Let's go ahead and make some gumballs. Shift A to make a UV sphere. Move it up, scale it down, move it up. Make sure to make them pretty small. I think that's about a good size. Add a subdivision surface modifier. 1 should be good. And shade it smooth. We're once again adding a subdivision to get rid of that those weird lines around the edges, jagged edges. And we can start making textures for these. These are pretty simple. Just make them rainbow colored. Doesn't take too long. Just really, you could even go with just the default material and just change the color, but I'm gonna make a few changes. And make a red gumball. Once you've got a red gumball, we can go ahead and make a I'm gonna make a different color one. Copy this, new texture, delete this, copy this, connect this. Now that we've got our gumballs, we should probably arrange them in the sphere. So I'm going to scale these down a little bit too big. And we got to arrange them. So there's no really good way to arrange these. It's just kind of random the way it goes. So you just want to make sure it's just not, you don't want any gumballs intersecting into each other. So just go ahead and just kind of stack them up pretty much. And this is our final product. I positioned the gumballs inside. I kind of like the idea of having them float around. It's not very realistic, but I think it looks cool. But thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any ideas, suggestions, or feedback, make sure to comment it down below in the comment section. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.